the political side that I supported had lost the election, or as we believed then, had been rigged out. But hate speech laws in this country are so broad and so primitive in the application, because sometimes it's just that I don't like what you said, so it's hate speech. Even our accusers, some of the people who accused us, like Mungo Irene, were now in jail, so and I wish him well. But
are you free to speak about working with Junet?
No. No, it's okay. What happened is that
then came 2014. You made a post on Facebook and then the charge that it was hate speech. How did all this happen?
You have to put 2014 in its proper political context. One, we had had an election just a year ago, and the new government that came in power was very sensitive to criticism of whatever nature. And what happened at that point is that there was a terror attack in Beketoni. And during that time, the regime in power was blaming. The other thing I would want to say is that I was an opposition activist. I was supporting the political side that I supported had lost the election, or as we believed then, had been rigged out. You get it? And the regime that had taken power, the first Uhuru regime, was very sensitive to criticism of whatever nature. And so when this terror attack happened, and there was also the determination to just pick from the opposition whatever comment, and to find these people, find these young people who are emerging as thought leaders in the political opposition, and just try to just hit on the head, just try to reduce that kind of agitation. So the sensitivities around that was that these attacks, Mpeketoni is inhabited primarily by majority one ethnic group, and so when the post came up, and I do not want to say I'm the one who made that post, they were feeling like you had committed hate speech. But hate speech laws in this country are so broad and so primitive in the application, because sometimes it's just that I don't like what you said, so it's hate speech. You remove the historical context from everything, and then you say that what you're saying is hate speech. If today I say British colonizers colonized Kenya to a white person, they will say that's hate speech, that you brutalized people, or that you are slave holding, or all manner of things. And so in 2014, the whole point was that the Jubilee regime at that point was autocratic. They were becoming authoritarian, and they just didn't want any form of criticism. The regime was very thin-skinned, and we've come from very far, by the way, as a country. For those of us who were here in 2014 when politics, when there were all these terror attacks, Uhuru had just come to power, and they were trying to, they had all this, everything was for every problem they faced, it was my way or the highway, so they tried to create that environment. But because of our democratic institutions, the judiciary was able to, become a strong line of defense against regime excesses. So that is what happened. So we battled that case, and eventually it was thrown out because as I told you, it was a case that shouldn't have been instituted in the first place. There was a lot of witch hunting in 2014, and we were just the first people. And throughout that period, so many people ended up being arrested with the same charges, And I tend to think that the country has become more tolerant to contrary views from 2014 days, and it's a good thing for our country.
So is it true to say that that situation is what cast you into national politics?
I was already on national politics. I was already on the national stage. I think that's why the radar was on me. The people who didn't know me at that point in time, whom the case introduced to me, and it was a sad introduction because we are being introduced as this hate monger, and all that, and that was not me. I'd been a student leader, I would have been elected by a multiplicity of ethnicities, I believe, and I didn't see myself, and I don't see myself as somebody who has any animus towards any ethnic group. I have strong opinions about certain things. I can collectivize groups. It's the beauty of going to school, that you're able to, group people or group, things, animals or mammals or things like that, Caucasians, Arabs, Africans. You're able to study things in groups. That's the beauty of going to school. But the application of that knowledge is what I can say nearly cost me my freedom and my reputation. But I do want to say that I do not see myself as somebody who has any iota of hatred towards any ethnic group or any individual. I'm a very,
You are a very notable person on Twitter. Before I had known you for blogging, you had a blog that was running political articles, and then you shifted to Twitter. How was the transition, and how did you come to a situation where you became so big? You are at the level of the likes of Robert Alai and Akina Dennis Itumbi at that time.
I don't know how big a land it will be, but it is true that I ran a blog from my university days. I think the transition is when we left writing for Third Eye, which will be pasted on the walls. I transitioned. What was happening was that readership was getting online, and many people, because of the availability of phones, and many people were able now to access the internet. And you remember, we were just emerging with a new social media platform called Facebook. And so blogs, which had been an earlier, there were Kenyans who had been doing blogs for a very long time. The only difference now is that you could do a blog and you could share the link of that blog on your Facebook account. And so many people were able to read, because you are now, the most popular platform then was Facebook, but you are also able to share blog posts on Facebook. So many people were able to read. But these are changes that took place. Remember, we were media students also, by and large, you are communication students. And these changes were happening at the same time that you were emerging from the university. So if you are studying world trends, you could tell that readership was moving from traditional, what was called traditional media, into new media forms. And that meant online. And then the ubiquity of the internet and of mobile telephone devices. One of the things that the Kibaki regime did was to zero rate taxes on mobile devices. So people were able to own phones very cheaply, and it helped. We were maybe among the first generation of students who were able to even use their phones. Remember, in more when we came in, there were what you call cyber cafes. If you wanted to do further research, you go to a cyber cafe, and But this was now even within the universities, we were fighting for internet spots to be created so that you could be able to surf anywhere at any place, and that was also taken over now by just the way in which phones and the internet became cheap and accessible to students. So I was running a blog or a blog post in the university, and I had been introduced to this blog post by another friend of mine. He's out of the country. It's called Jeff Namboga, who was like the super editor. So he had given me an opportunity. In fact, I had requested him if I could intern with that. It appeared to me to be such a big media house, So I asked him, "Can I intern with you?" We were desperate for internship opportunities. There are very few media institutions in Kenya, by the way, where you can intern. So if you can't intern in these media houses and you want to be a media practitioner, you want to be a journalist, there are very few places. And personally, I wanted to be a print journalist. I wanted to be a writer and something like that. And so when I talked to Jeff, and he told me you can start by writing here and editing, and so I quickly learned how to navigate the online world that was just emerging, So, but then when I was arrested in 2014, I kind of just, one of the things that happened is that I had lost the logins for that account, and the people who had taken it had deactivated it, And so when it was deactivated, there are a lot of precious memories of my university life and all those. I felt so bad, by the way, that all that had just gone down the drain. That whole archive of your life throughout the university, student politics and writing and all that. And so when I moved from the blog, it's also Jeff who actually told me, you need to check on Twitter. There's this other new platform, this new social media platform called Twitter, and you need to check on it. I think you can do well in it. And by just giving a very short opinion, because I am opinionated, I share my opinion, my thoughts on a number of things. He told me it's one place where you can really share your opinions on politics and stuff like that. So that is how I transitioned again, and then I started building my Twitter platform and things like that. Yeah.
Are you free to speak about working with Junet?
No. No, it's okay. What happened is that beginning in 2014, 2015, I got now more involved in politics and in political institutions. So I was tapped by the then ED of ODM to go and help produce a party newspaper that had been launched. It collapsed, and it collapsed because of two things. One, the advertising nature in Kenya is that most newspapers depend on government. And this particular paper was anti-government. The point is, it was an opposition paper, which was exposing, the rot in government and things like that. So we were denied advertising revenue, and without advertising revenue, you can't survive. And so, and then the other thing is that even if that were the case, the party was not able to sponsor production of newspaper. And then the last thing is that the readership was moving online. So like any other print traditional paper, the readership was becoming less and less, but the distribution channels and production was more costly. So it did not make any business sense. So when that collapsed, I moved now to mainstream party to deputize the director of communications of ODM, my friend Phil Talley. So I stayed at Orange House for a very long time, and then I decided to come and work for Hon.Junet Mohamed as a researcher, but also as a media aide.
At some point, you and the Grand Mullah were not in good terms online.
Oh yeah, we banter. Partly it's usually a banter online. The Grand Mullah is a friend to my boss. Yeah, and so here when you come here, it's only that today there is no tea, but when you come here, we do give. Me, I have no problem with serving people. I as an exchange student in the US, one of the things I learned is that it takes nothing from you to do any kind of job. So I can be a cleaner if that is what it is. I can be a cook if that is what it is. I can be anything. The Americans have a saying for it: $1 is $1. As long as you're working your days a decent day's wage, you better not go hungry. So when and here when one of the other things I've learned working for Hon.Junet is that, you see, the problem in our education system is that it makes you believe that if you are a journalist, that is the only thing you can do. Or if you are, you can only do that which you train for. But sometimes that is not how the real world works. The real world, sometimes the things you train for do not exist, and so you have to adopt new jobs, new ways, and things like that. So, Grand Mullah, when he came here one day, I had the honor of serving him tea. And so, when we had a TIFF online, he called me a tea boy, and I was good with it.
Do you have any ambitions to actually be an MP of a constituency at some point in time?
I'm not that ambitious. I'm not an ambitious guy. I think one of the things I've learned is to temper my ambitions. And looking at the reality of politics in our country, I think our politics is a bit parasitic. It needs folks with money, and those of us who have not broken even financially, I think it will be a mistake to get into politics because you are going to lose in the next election, or you're going to steal a lot from the public. So I think it's not something that I think I want. I want to support politics. I love working in a political environment. I love politics, but I don't want to get into elective politics, not anytime soon.
Is there anything you want to add that probably we've missed out?
I don't think there's anything. I think we've covered everything. Only that to say that I think one of the things I enjoyed most as a student of Moi is just the ability to look at the world and try to understand the many forces. So I'm more of an intersectionist. I try to look at where things converge and why things converge, and how that what is the new thing that is produced and when things converge. I'm also hopeful about our country. I think that however dark things may look, I tend to think that we are people who came of age with Mwai Kibaki, and we've had the pleasure to see at least a full presidential term go, and I can tell you that politics, the way this country's politics is running right now, you can only be glad to be a Kenyan because I do not see the country maybe slipping into authoritarianism and things like that. I think there's a river that we've crossed. There's a Rubicon that we've crossed as a country, and I also think that we become more tolerant as a country, especially those in power become more tolerant. And much of it was as a result of the changes that took place during Uhuru's presidency, how he came to power and how he exited. And how he was able to just balance the different interests in our country and all together towards the end. It's I didn't like him when he came to power, and as you already know, his regime was very autocratic and very sensitive to criticism, and some of us are victims of that moment. But even our accusers, some of the people who accused us, like Mungo Irene, were now in jail. So, and I wish him well, but the point I'm trying to say is that if you are a political supporter, if you support, for those who support, for instance, the current regime, and those who don't, one of the things we should always remember is that we are Kenyans. We are countrymates. And some of these differences are just that, differences.